Moving on to Ad Astra, though. James Gray, last movie we reviewed by him, The Lost City of Z. A movie we both really liked.
Yeah,
And
2017.
this Ad Astra is by far his biggest movie.
Yep.
Made 19 million at the box office this weekend domestically. Um, pretty a pretty interesting film. There was a lot of buzz around this. It was being pumped on the NFL weekend shows and things like that, and really this drive. It's funny that a movie like this was being marketed to these NFL, like the typical NFL fans, because I don't know if this is the type of movie a typical NFL fan would go and leave super
Yeah.
jazzed about.
The Martian, this is not.
Yeah, certainly not. I think it's easy to think, oh, it's going to be something like The Martian or Interstellar, but no, this is a much more interesting film in terms of the themes and the questions it asks. I think about humanity, about relationships, but maybe a place to start is: did you like Ad Astra, Dave?
Fuck yeah, dude. Oh my god.
I've seen mixed replies. It only has like a 48% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, again, I think that's in line with expectations. I think a lot of people are seeing this as their first James Gray movie,
Yeah.
And expecting a Gravity or a Martian, as we said, but it's not that. And something this cerebral is inherently not going to be for everyone, whether it's in space or on the ground. But it's kind of in tandem now for me with High Life, another cerebral space film with Robert Pattinson. It also involves reporting to a narrative voice that speaks to you, which is kind of a funny connection. But yeah, this is in my top 5 for sure. I'm just still trying to sort where exactly it would rank. That'll certainly change. But yeah, I was pretty blown away. I thought the movie was really effective, and I think it explores a lot, which we'll continue to talk about, but also has a slew of stellar visuals, a lot of set pieces, which are pretty rare, or not a lot, but a fair amount of set pieces, certainly more than you expect from James Gray movie, and also amazing performances. I think Brad has just concluded a stellar year for him. He hasn't acted in 2 films the same year in a long ass time, and between Roy and Cliff Booth, this is definitely one of his best years, obviously. But Ruth Negga in a small role on Mars doesn't have a whole lot of time. I think she really leaves an impact. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones actually gives, I think, a really committed performance, which is nice to see considering, he's been up there in age. He's been collecting some checks recently, but I really liked him as well. And even small role for Donald Sutherland. I thought he was fantastic. Another guy who I haven't seen try and attempt a whole lot recently in his older age. But yeah, in short, huge fan. What did you think?
Yeah, I really liked this film. And I think my expectations going in and what it ended up being made it a little bit harder to sit with at first. But the more I sat with it, the more I felt like this was a movie that could have been made by Barry Jenkins. I think that's really what I really liked about it. The coloring, the way that the scenes were shot. The one image I think that sticks in my mind the most is there's this scene, and I can't remember exactly when it was in the movie, but it shows like Brad Pitt with his helmet off in the space costume, and it's like this yellow light that slowly like fades up to like blackness like right above him, and like just the way that that's shot, I'm like, this is one of the most gorgeously lighted, colored film movies of the year by far. And I think as a piece of art, it's really good. I think as a story, it's a little up and down, only in terms of there are some points where there's not much going on. You're kind of just sitting with either what just happened, looking forward to whatever's happening next, and it can feel a little dull at points. But overall, I thought Brad Pitt was phenomenal. Maybe some of the most emotionally engaging work I can remember Brad Pitt doing, which is, I think, pretty amazing to say at this point in his career, that he's still got more to show us. And that scene where he's talking to the microphone and goes off script is just, I mean, that to steal from another movie he was in, that might be some of the best acting I've ever seen. So some good shit right there.
Yeah, I think everything on Mars was awesome. Production design too was really great there. Just that orange audio booth looked awesome. But even when Ruth Negga comes into the room and the way she's in the middle of the frame, the doors closed behind her, it's perfectly centered, looks awesome. And even leading up to before that, everything on the moon, having a industrialized, commercialized moon in the near future could have been really hokey or gimmicky, but it's not. It's kind of another subtle comment by Gray about, what like the throwaway line from Roy about how it's like the moon's just like Earth. It's nothing's changed. We destroy everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go from that to this, I think, fucking really visceral chase scene on the rovers as he's going to the dark side of the moon.
Yeah,
when they're shooting these like pressure guns. Not totally sure exactly what kind of ammunition was going on there. Doesn't matter. It looked great.
It was amazing awesome to see the set pieces that really capture you, whether it's right from the get-go, Roy falling off the satellite as it's going through the surge.
God. What a thrilling opening.
Yeah, or going to the space rover chase, or the rescue mission on the SOS ship with the apes, or even when he finally finds his dad. There's like barely any music behind those, and the fact that they were able to make this movie as engaging as it was, with how minimal it was in terms of sound and music to kind of drive that emotion, was just really, I thought, phenomenal and impressive in terms of filmmaking. Going back to what you were just talking about in terms of like the moon thing, it's got me thinking about a piece of like a running thing throughout the film that I thought was an interesting commentary on maybe modern society or modern mental health, but how they kept using the psychological checks as a way of almost like controlling Roy. And when he finally starts to when he's like going against what they want him to do, he's failing the psychological checks all of a sudden, but when he's openly talking about like, what's the purpose of life? Like, I'm so alone. Like, I hate all this. They're like, you pass your psychological check. And it's like it's a pretty interesting and thought-provoking piece of it that I think adds a lot to Roy as a character, but also kind of the state of the world at that point.
Right. And honestly, it's like the closest analog to this movie is First Man, which is based off obviously real events, but both movies are very introspective with their lead characters in terms of like processing like hero myths. And I think in Ad Astra, it's almost doubled up because you have this guy who's compartmentalizing everything about his life, and we learn that and you know that about him. Then once the plot actually advances and things change, and suddenly he can't do the one thing we've been told is his like superpower, right? It works really well. And just I think the overall like comments about like motivation and like finding purpose, whether you're well known or not, and then I guess processing when things let you down, in this case the knowledge of the true nature of your father in this movie. I think it all really lands for me. It's just really funny because, man, you mentioned like the football advertising. It seems like some of the antagonism towards the film is like calling it just another bro space movie, which just doesn't make any sense to me, because this, as you said, this is the movie that bros won't finish because it's too dull for them, right? Like I don't understand how you can watch that and have that be your takeaway. I think it's fantastic character work, and it kind of ends quickly like most Gray movies, but I think most people that are liking the movie say that it's sticking with them. They're thinking about it a lot after seeing it, which I think is kind of a testament to just how much the movie's attempting to explore with its characters. So I think it's awesome.
What were the themes that you are left thinking about or sitting with most since you saw it?
Yeah, I think like the whole aspect of the hero, and how Tommy Lee Jones is someone who the government or NASA, whatever, secretly would disavow, doesn't support, but is propped up and lied about for years for the sake of their own propaganda, success, whatever, right? And then having Pitt, Roy, his son, come up in that shadow and be everything they want. I saw someone describe this Roy's initial character as a advertisement for the Space Force.
Mm-hmm.
He's everything you would want in that, right? But then having that be deconstructed as Roy basically goes on this journey alone to kind of learn for himself that everything he's been told is not true. I found that really effective. And I mean, the fathers and sons aspect of it all, I know that probably lands better for people that are actually fathers or sons, I imagine. But I don't know. I thought it was really warm, and the emotional beats that Roy has towards the end that really landed for me. So, like I said, I think it's a really effective movie.
Yeah, I think the father and son relationship obviously hits home. Obviously, if you're a father and son, but beyond that, I think the ideas of like loneliness and vulnerability are probably what I'm sitting with most. Just in terms of you see Roy at some of the most crucial moments, like have small flashes back to Liv Tyler,
right?
Who also, for not getting to say anything in the film except for like I'm leaving or something like that, I remember her probably more than almost any other of the bit people in the film. Like I think about Liv Tyler scenes more than I think about Donald Sutherland scenes from the movie, because I think it just means so much more to who Roy as a character is, and what he's really grappling with is this like desire to be this like perfect space astronaut, a space explorer, live up to what his dad wants, or dad was, and then what he has to sacrifice to get it. But what he really wants is just to be seen and understood and accepted by this person who he's pushing away. And it just really just a really thought-provoking film. I think there's so much you can take away and so many ways to see it. I'd really recommend if you enjoy auteur films and films that are just moving and thought-provoking, go see Ad Astra. I have a feeling we'll definitely be talking about it for a couple of Oscar nominations. Do you think Pitt will earn a nomination for this role?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Obviously, he'd be going up for lead actor with Ad Astra and supporting for Hollywood. He's in the mix. I think a Cliff Booth nomination's probably more likely. This is a Fox movie that Disney inherited. It was initially slated to come out in May. I think this is a much better time for it to come out, personally, because this is not a summer movie. But will Disney and Fox campaign for it? It's not a Fox Searchlight movie. They already have their own Oscar expertise. Tough to say. To his credit, Pitt did say last week to, I think, IndieWire, that he doesn't plan to campaign for either performance, which some people read as a admission that he is looking to get one of those. That would be nice. I don't know. I'd say he probably doesn't get nominated for this. This movie's probably going to be a little underseen, which I think is kind of going to hurt against it. Like, it's grossed $45 million worldwide, but the budget was $80 before marketing. It is an expensive movie. That might get held against it. Tough to say. This is one of those movies as an adult drama that Disney inherited. It would be nice if more people would support this movie in the theater to show that there is still an audience for adult dramas. Again, this is still about space and the future and stuff, but if you want Disney to actually finance those movies once the Fox movies are gone, Astra probably shouldn't lose $30 million. So let's see.
No, I completely agree. I would love to see Pickett the nomination. Obviously, without seeing the other films that will be up for contention yet, but I think Cliff Booth seems more like he'll get the nomination for it. People have really taken a lot from that performance, which is also a pretty subdued Pitt performance in terms of what he gets to say. So doing a lot with not a ton to go off of, which is just speaks to his quality. And his career as an actor is really interesting at this point, just thinking about how he kind of came up as like this pretty face and like sex symbol, turned into this mega star with Aniston and Jolie and everything with that, and now it's moved into this new phase of his career where he's this awesome actor. I love that scene or that interview where he's doing with Margot Robbie and he's talking about, or she says she hasn't seen Midnight in Paris.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, my friend, you must see it," or something like that. The way he says it, just like major Brad Pitt vibes this year. So I'd love to see it. James Gray, I also would like to see get a nomination, but I don't know if this will be it for him or not. But definitely moving in the right direction.
Upon refreshing my memory of who's in the mix, I mean, we have Leo, Adam Driver, Marriage Story. Feels like a lock at this point. We have Damon or Bale in Ford versus Ferrari, depending on how they run that. Joaquin, Sandler, Banderas, Price. Yeah,
and Sandler, I think.
Ruffalo, De Niro, Ed Norton. There's a ton of hitters in this category. So I think Pitt will probably be happy with just for Cliff, which I think is very likely.
Oscars are gonna be fun this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Go see Ad Astra.